I'm Josh Voigt. I'm in studio today with Dean Soash. Dean's running for mayor. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, what I want to do to start off with is get to know a little bit more about you as a candidate.
Okay.
So, how long have you lived in Waverley?
I've lived in Waverley since 1956 when my wife and I got married.
Okay, so you've been around for quite a while.
I've been around, I tell people, almost long enough to be a native.
Okay, and what made you, I guess, how long have you been getting involved with the community?
I've been involved for, my gosh, they're back in the 70s in some form or another. My son was in Boy Scouts and I started hanging around. He was having trouble at the meetings and if you're going to hang around, you just will help. And so I was involved with them. First Economic Development Commission came along in the mid-'80s. Evelyn Rothy was mayor, and I was fortunate enough to serve on that commission or that group for one term of a couple of years. And when I got done, she says, I have a place for you. If you're interested on planning and zoning. So I served 18 years on that, was involved with the chamber on various things.
Okay. So you've been involved with the chamber for a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what do you think is unique about you that qualifies you for the position of mayor?
I have capabilities of listening to the public, and I tell people broad shoulders that I hopefully can support whatever comes my way and be able to deal with it. So.
Okay. Now, what made you decide to want to run for mayor?
I've been approached by various people over the past 2 or 3 years that because I've been active at council meetings, city council meetings, would speak out and somehow they picked up that maybe you ought to be in a public office. I hadn't planned necessarily to run for mayor, but when spousal approval came, that's all that was left. So
you had to wait for the spousal approval.
I had to wait for spousal approval, even though we talked about it off and on for 3 or 4 years, so the support from the general public has been unbelievable.
Okay. Okay. Now, what, if anything, comes to mind as something that you would want to immediately address as mayor of Waverley?
Transparency is one thing. The Green Bridge, if virtually everyone knows about the Green Bridge, if I can succeed to get some money in the upcoming budget for that, would immediately form a citizens group to assist the council in making a decision on what to do. So the first step is to get some funds approved in the budget and then work from there. But there just needs to be more transparency in all of the city functions, government.
Okay. Now I was going to come back to this a little bit later, but to touch on the controversial, you mentioned the Green Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
What suggestions would you have as to what should be done moving forward with that project?
It's going to be up to citizens, as far as I'm concerned, to make, because there was a citizens group early on in the early 2000s, of which I was a part of that group, and the decision was made at that time to replace it. The neighbor to the bridge succeeded in having the option of repair, which council rejected last spring, and from there it's kind of been really up in the air as to what's going to happen. But it'll soon be 3 years in February that it's been closed, and good percentage of the people miss it.
Okay.
For lots of reasons.
So you think a lot of people want that to come back?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And do you think from what you've seen, do you think the public favors a pedestrian bridge, or do you think they favor more a dual lane?
I think there's overwhelming support for a vehicular bridge, and what style, type, whatever we end up with, I think is going to be up to that group. It's just my own opinion that I'm not sure that a city council can make that decision on their own.
Okay. Okay. Now, looking forward, do you have any particular long-term goals for the improvement of Waverley?
Economic development is high on my list of priorities. I think maybe we're slipping behind on acquiring new business, whether it be a small industry or just a small business venture. And some things need to be done and looked at it really hard again. So.
Okay. Okay. Now, there's been plans for a new community space farmers market. The splash pad and river access were unveiled last week.
I understand that.
Have you know about that development?
I was at the council meeting when that plan was presented.
Okay. Now, the cost for that is estimated at $1.17 million. What do you think about that project?
I think it's low on the priority list.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. Now, other ones may think it's high, and obviously the Leisure Services Parks and Rec Division think it ought to be ought to be high priority, but other than some repairs to preserve a building, I don't see where the funds are going to come from for that. So there's a more extensive list of priorities than that, in my estimation anyway.
And what do you think would be, the higher things on your list?
Cedar River Parkway, which is an extension of 10th Avenue, that's high on the list. The Green Bridge, if we're successful in finding some funds. Those are probably the top two things that I would see as priority lists. There's some that are dictated by, I think there's some work at the wastewater treatment plant that's going to have to be done. Not right away, but it's got to be funded, and just as well start to fund that early on instead of wait until the last minute.
So do you think though that this project would be beneficial for the community, or do you think that you could put this off in favor of pursuing those things higher on your list?
Which project
the one we would the
South River
community space, the farmers market?
I don't have a problem with the farmers market moving to that area. I think they can accommodate that without all of the other expense. I don't know what they have in mind. I didn't, hopefully it's not a several $100,000 shelter for them. Mm-hmm. They've been getting by for a lot of years. Not that it wouldn't be nice, but no, I think the Parkway and possibly the Green Bridge are the top priorities, along with economic development. So.
Okay. Now, to end off, from your point of view, on a bit of a lighter note, what do you think is the strongest asset that Waverley has? So what do you think is Waverley's strongest quality?
Well, obviously the citizens, and association with Wartburg adds a tremendous value to the community, as long as it's been around. As long as I've been associated with it, which is 1962. And but citizens, our education system as a whole, and in fact, I just read in the paper before I came up that between Wartburg and the community school district, which we rank pretty high on the education system. So.
Okay, so you'd say that what the prized possession of Waverley would be the citizens, in your view?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Without their involvement, we aren't going to get anything to happen.
Okay. And to close off, if you had anything that you would like to say to any citizens who perhaps haven't seen anything from your campaign, what would you say to those people?
It's time for change. Vote for change, and polls are open December 5th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Perfect.
And would appreciate your support. So.
Well, there you go. Polls are open on December 5th. Thank you very much for Cedar Valley today. I'm Josh Voigt.